when my daughter handed me $14.99. Socks for Father's Day. I smiled until I saw a $10,000 Rolex on her father-in-law's wrist, the one she bought using my money. Days later, she called me begging me to stop what I'd set in motion, but she had no idea what was coming next. Before I tell you everything, do me one small favor. Follow the channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. It helps this story reach more people who might need to hear it. My name is Harold Mercer, and I live in a quiet corner of Redwood Heights, Illinois, in a house older than most marriages in this neighborhood. My late wife, Ellen, and I built our life here one paycheck, one repaired fence post, one winter storm at a time. When she passed 20 years ago, I threw everything I had left into raising our daughter, Amelia. She became my purpose, my pride, and eventually my blind spot. This past Father's Day, Amelia said she had a special surprise for me. I didn't expect diamonds or parades, just a moment that felt like family again. I sat in my living room waiting, sunlight warming the old carpet, dust floating lazily in the air like tiny memories. The mantel clock above me, broken for years, seemed to tick inside my head instead of on the wall. I tried to quiet the noise, hope and doubt wrestling inside me. When the doorbell finally rang, I straightened my shirt like a schoolboy. I opened the door to Amelia standing there in a beige designer coat, hair perfectly styled, smile polished like someone posing for a magazine instead of greeting her father. Her husband, Leon, towered behind her, hands in pockets, wearing a smirk that had always rubbed me wrong. "Happy Father's Day, Dad," she said sweetly, thrusting a glossy bag into my hands. It was small. Light, too light. Inside was a pair of navy socks. Price tag attached. $14.99. I forced a smile. "Practical," I said. Amelia let out a thin laugh. "Exactly. You don't need anything fancy." Leon chuckled. "Yeah, Harold, you're a simple guy." Simple. Funny how a word can sting more than a slap. They didn't stay long. They never did anymore. Within minutes, the door closed behind them, leaving silence so thick I felt like I could choke on it. I laid the socks on the counter gently, as if handling something fragile, a silly instinct, considering the care she had not shown me. I sat with my coffee, scrolling my laptop to distract myself. And then I saw it. A photo posted by Amelia just an hour earlier. Her father-in-law, Walter Drake, sitting in a restaurant, raising his wrist proudly. On it, a gleaming $10,000 Rolex Daytona, unmistakable even through a screen. The caption read, "For the best father-in-law, a gift that matches your class." My breath left me. I zoomed in. The watch glinted under the restaurant lighting. I knew that dial. I knew the model. And worst of all, I knew who paid for it. 2 months earlier, Amelia had called sobbing. "Dad, I need $10,000. It's medical." I wouldn't ask unless it was vital. Please. Vital. I had wired the money the same night, without hesitation, without doubt. Now I saw exactly where it had gone, onto Walter Drake's wrist. I sat frozen, coffee cooling, socks mocking, heart sinking. The betrayal didn't scream. It whispered, a quiet unraveling, tugging at every memory I had of raising her. Birthdays, scraped knees, college tuition, the down payment for a home, all the moments I pushed aside my own life because her future mattered more. I felt something unfamiliar then, not anger, not grief, something colder, sharper, a decision forming in my bones. She called once, then again, and again, 17 times before evening. I let the phone buzz on the counter while I stared at the printed photo, the truth shining back at me like a spotlight. Her last voicemail broke through the room. "Dad, don't do this." But I already had. The next morning I drove into the upscale district of Oak Street, where boutiques lined the street like jeweled teeth. Rain streaked down my windshield, the world outside blurred and unforgiving. I clutched the printed screenshot of Walter's wrist in my pocket like evidence. The jewelry store greeted me with marble floors, glass displays, and chandeliers so bright they almost hummed. A clerk approached. Polished smile, polished suit, or maybe polished judgment. Can I help you find something, sir? I handed her the printout. Was this purchased here? She studied it. Her smile wavered, just slightly. Then she disappeared behind a velvet curtain. Minutes stretched. My heartbeat tried to mimic the broken clock at home. Then the manager emerged, silver glasses, steady eyes. Yes, he said. This model was sold here. March 15th. My chest tightened. Do you know who purchased it? A young woman. Her husband accompanied her. She said it was a gift. I swallowed hard. Was the transaction paid with his card? I slid him a copy of my bank statement with the $10,200 transfer circled in red ink. He examined it, looked up, nodded once. I'm afraid so. That was it. The confirmation. The final thread snapping cleanly. Thank you, I said softly, and I walked out into the rain a different man. In the car, the storm beat against the roof while Amelia's calls kept lighting up my phone like warnings I no longer cared to heed. Each ring was a reminder of the years she counted on me to never push back. But she had miscalculated. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't breaking down. I was planning. Quietly. Precisely. And for the first time in decades, my choices were about to matter more than hers. The rain followed me home from Oak Street, tapping lightly on the roof as though urging me to keep going. My house felt different when I stepped inside. Not smaller, not colder, but unfamiliar in a way that made my chest tighten. The socks Amelia gave me still sat on the counter, exactly where I left them. Their cheapness felt heavier than the Rolex itself. Maybe because they represented the last moment, I still believed she saw me as her father. Now I knew she saw me as a resource, a bank account with a heartbeat. My phone buzzed the second I hung up my coat. Amelia, call number 18. I didn't answer. For the first time in my life, letting her voice go to voicemail didn't feel like failure. It felt like clarity. I made tea, though my hand shook slightly, and sat at the kitchen table. The quiet was almost too much to bear. Helen used to hum while cooking, her soft voice filling every corner of this house. Amelia used to run around the kitchen island, chasing imaginary dragons or pretending she was a pirate captain. Those memories came back now like unwelcome guests, gentle but painful. I opened my laptop again. The Rolex photo glowed accusingly. So, did the bank transfer? So did the memory of Amelia's trembling voice telling me she needed the money for medical reasons. I closed the laptop. I needed to breathe, but breathing became harder when the phone finally stopped ringing, only to buzz with a voicemail. I listened. Dad, please call me. We can talk about this. Don't make decisions without me. The shift in her tone was subtle. This wasn't guilt. It was fear. Fear of losing something she relied on. I set the phone down and leaned back. I wasn't making decisions without her. I was making decisions about her. That evening I sat in my recliner, lights dimmed, watching the rain coat the windows in tiny rivers. For the first time in my adult life, I let myself think without defending her, without excuses, without stories that painted her in the best light. What would Helen say if she were here? She'd place a hand on my shoulder, steady and warm, and say, "Don't let your love blind your judgment, Harold." I rubbed my temples. I wish she were here to say it out loud. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. Something about betrayal changes your internal clock, like your body refuses to let you sleep through danger. The sky outside was still tinted gray when I drove to Elmbridge Federal Bank, a place I trusted with every major milestone in my life. Mortgage, savings, even the account I'd opened for Amelia when she was 12. The lobby smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and a young banker named Marissa greeted me with a bright smile that felt strangely out of place in my mood. "How can I help you today, Mr. Mercer?" "I need to remove someone from my credit access," I said. Immediately, her smile softened. "Of course. Do you have their name?" "Amelia Mercer." Her fingers paused over keyboard. "Your daughter?" I nodded. "My daughter." She didn't ask why. Good bankers know when silence is safer than conversation. She pulled up the documents. I signed them slowly, deliberately. Each signature felt like unspooling a lifetime of unconditional giving. As of this moment, she said, she no longer has any access to your accounts. Relief washed over me, followed by an aching sadness. I walked out of the bank a different version of myself. Not stronger, not colder, just awake. Outside, sunlight finally pierced through the clouds, landing on the windshield of my car like a spotlight. Maybe a sign, maybe coincidence, maybe just a world carrying on while my life shifted beneath my feet. I had barely pulled out of the parking lot when my phone buzzed violently. Amelia calling. Then again, and again, I didn't answer. When I finally looked down, she had sent a message. Dad, my card isn't working. Fix this right now. No apology, no explanation, no recognition of what she'd done. Just expectation. I drove straight to Carter and Low Legal Group, the office of Attorney Evelyn Carter, a woman my friend recommended for cases where family gets messy. Her building was tall, the kind of glass structure that reflected the sky, so clearly it made you squint. Inside her office, the scent of old books and strong coffee filled the air. Evelyn herself stood behind a desk cluttered with papers and law journals. Her dark hair was tied back loosely, glasses perched on her nose, giving her the look of someone who hadn't slept because she'd been thinking too hard, and liked it that way. You must be Harold, she said, extending her hand. Firm handshake. Good sign. I am. Tell me everything. I did, from the socks to the Rolex to the lie, to the calls. I handed her the printed screenshots, the bank statement, the timeline. She listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When I finished, she tapped her pen lightly on the table. Your daughter committed financial deception, possibly fraud. The words tasted bitter in my mouth. I'm not trying to ruin her, I said. I just need to protect myself. And that, she said, is exactly why you're here. Evelyn outlined a plan. Freeze accounts, gather evidence, wait for Amelia's next move. She predicted it before it even happened. She'll panic, she said. She'll lash out. She'll try to guilt you. She may even retaliate legally. She already tried guilt, I said quietly. Evelyn nodded. Then retaliation is next. By the time I left her office, my head was clearer than it had been in years. At home, I sat on the porch, listening to the wind rustle through the trees. My neighbor, old Mr. Ludwig, waved from across the street while walking his dog. Beautiful day, Harold, he called. It is, I said, and for once it felt true. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a voicemail. I pressed play, expecting fury or manipulation. Instead, I heard a tight, cold edge in Amelia's voice. Dad, I talked to Leon. If you don't fix this, we're going to police. You can't just cut us off. This isn't over. A threat. My own daughter had jumped from guilt to entitlement to intimidation in less than 24 hours. I leaned back in my porch chair, the old wood groaning beneath me. No, Amelia, I whispered to the empty yard. You're right. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The morning after Amelia's voicemail, I woke with a knot in my stomach. Not fear, not regret, but kind of bracing calm, the kind you feel before stepping into cold water. I had known she might lash out, but hearing her speak about going to police, as if I were a criminal, that was a new kind of wound. Not sharp, but deep, the kind that makes a man realize he has nothing left to lose. I brewed my coffee slowly, letting the hum of the old machine fill the kitchen. Helen used to tease me for being attached to it. She said the thing sounded like an asthmatic bull. Now its sputtering noise felt like the only loyal companion left in the house. As the steam curled upward, I stared at the mantel, at the frozen clock with hands stuck at 3:17. I had never fixed it. Something about that stillness felt like grief preserved in glass. Today, though, it felt like a message. Time wasn't moving for me, but I was moving anyway. I took my coffee to the porch. Redwood Heights was waking up, neighbors rolling out trash bins, a couple jogging, a dog barking in the distance. Life looked normal through the lens of this quiet street. It was strange how whole worlds could collapse quietly behind closed doors while the rest of the world watered their lawns. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Mercer, this is Officer Rayburn of the Redwood Heights Police Department. Please come in this afternoon to discuss a file concern. I closed my eyes, inhaling the cool morning air. There it was. Amelia had followed through. She and Leon had actually gone to the police. Something bitter rose in my throat. Not quite sadness, not quite anger. Something in between. The kind of disappointment you can't quite name. Inside, I grabbed the folder Evelyn had told me to keep ready. The bank statements, the jeweler's confirmation, printouts of Amelia's posts, screenshots of the Rolex on Walter's wrist. I tucked them into a leather binder Helen had bought me years ago. She always said every important decision deserved a neat folder. As I zipped it shut, my phone rang again. Amelia's name flashed across the screen, but this time I answered. She didn't even wait for a greeting. Dad, why didn't you tell me you froze the accounts? She snapped. Do you have any idea what kind of position you put us in? I kept my voice calm. It's my account, Amelia. You're being dramatic, she shot back. Leon said this is financial abuse. You can't just cut us off because you're upset. I didn't cut anyone off, I said. I protected myself. She laughed, sharp, mocking. From what? Your only child? You sound paranoid. I let the silence sit between us. Her breathing grew uneven, irritated that I wasn't reacting the way she wanted. Finally, she said, just come meet with us. We can fix this without dragging the police into it. A lie. A trap. I wasn't stepping into either. Amelia, I said quietly, you already dragged them into it. There was a pause, long enough to tell me she hadn't expected me to stand my ground. Then she hung up. The click echoed through the kitchen. Hours later, I walked into the Redwood Heights Police Department. The building smelled of disinfectant and stale air. A couple of officers stood near the entrance, chatting about last night's baseball game. The normalcy of it felt surreal as I carried a binder full of proof of my own daughter's deception. Officer Rayburn, a tall man with kind eyes and prematurely gray hair, led me to a small office. He motioned for me to sit. A thick file sat on the desk. Mr. Mercer, thank you for coming. We received a complaint from your daughter and her husband. They claim you restricted access to funds they rely on. I'm required to review both sides. His tone wasn't accusatory. He was doing his job. I placed my binder on the desk and opened it to the first page, my bank statement. I didn't restrict access to family funds, I said. I restricted access to my funds. Rayburn scanned the document. This is a $10,200 withdrawal. Transferred to my daughter. I explained. She told me it was for urgent medical expenses. And was it? I slid the printed photo of Walter's wrist across the desk. The Rolex glinted in the picture, like a piece of evidence longing to confess. She bought a luxury watch with it, I said, as a gift for her father-in-law, without my consent. Rayburn examined the photo carefully. I added, the jeweler confirmed the purchase was made with my card. He leaned back in his chair. That changes things. Yes. He lifted the next document, Amelia's social media post showing the watch at the restaurant. He blinked, almost amused. She posted it publicly? Yes, I said. She wasn't hiding. She assumed I'd never question her. Rayburn flipped through the rest. Evelyn's written statement, the purchase confirmation, Amelia's messages. With each page, his expression shifted from neutral professionalism to something like quiet disbelief. Finally, he closed the folder. Mr. Mercer, based on this, you acted within your rights. No crime was committed by you. In fact, he hesitated. In fact, your daughter may have committed financial fraud. And elder financial manipulation is taken seriously. The words hit me hard, not because I didn't expect them, but because hearing them from someone else made them real. I don't want to press charges, I said quickly. I just want my life back. Rayburn nodded. Understood. I'll mark this complaint as resolved and note the evidence you provided. You won't be contacted further. Relief washed through me, but it didn't feel victorious. It felt heavy, necessary, like medicine that fixes one part of you while weakening another. Outside the station, sunlight had brightened the afternoon. People laughed near a food truck across the street. A jogger passed by, panting lightly. The world kept going. My world had changed forever. I drove home slowly. The houses on Birch Lane looked the same as always. White fences, trimmed lawns, wind chimes swaying gently. Everything in place. Everything predictable. But inside my car, inside my mind, things were shifting, rearranging into something unfamiliar. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw a figure sitting on the porch bench. Leon. He stood when he saw me, hands shoved in his pockets, jaw tight. "We need to talk," he said. I didn't step closer. "I don't think we do." He let out a frustrated exhale. "You embarrassed us." "No," I said. "You embarrassed yourselves." "You think you're teaching us a lesson?" he scoffed. "You're just isolating yourself. Amelia is devastated." I almost laughed at that. "Devastated people don't threaten police reports," I said. "She acted out of fear," he insisted. "You blindsided her." I reacted to a lie. I said evenly, "There's a difference." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "Look, man, she made a mistake. One mistake." "No," I said softly. "It was a pattern." Silence fell. A cold, telling silence. Finally, Leon muttered, "She's not going to apologize." I'm not waiting for her to. He stared at me then, really stared. The anger in his eyes flickered into something like confusion. "You've changed," he said. Not accusing, not impressed, just surprised. "I had to," I replied. Then I opened my front door and stepped inside, leaving him on the porch, the conversation, and whatever part of my life he represented, shutting with the door behind me. Inside the house, for the first time, the broken clock didn't feel stuck. It felt like a beginning, a pause before an entirely new chapter. And I had no idea what Amelia would do next. But I knew this. Whatever she tried, I wasn't the man she once counted on to fold. The hours after Leon left my porch felt strangely still, like the air itself was holding its breath. I sat in my living room with the binder still in my lap, though I'd already memorized every page inside it. The evidence of Amelia's choices lay there in black and white, cold, undeniable. I thought seeing it all laid out might harden me, strip me of the ache that kept blooming in my chest. But the ache didn't go anywhere. It sat with me like an old injury, throbbing whenever I breathed too deeply. I closed the binder and set it carefully on the coffee table. The house around me felt different. Not emptier. No. Emptiness was something I'd learned to live with long ago, but altered, like a room you walked into 1,000 times and only now noticed the cracks in the walls. I could hear Helen's voice in my memories, the soft cadence of her telling me to stay steady, stay gentle. I wondered if she'd say that now, or if she'd tell me firmness is not cruelty, not when used to protect what's left of a life. The doorbell rang. My heart climbed into my throat. I expected to see Amelia's face through the glass, streaked with rehearsed tears or twisted with anger. But instead, standing on my porch was Evelyn Carter, her briefcase tucked under one arm. "Sorry for dropping by unannounced," she said. "But I didn't want this over the phone." A small jolt of worry hit me. "Is something wrong?" She stepped inside, brushing rain from her shoulders. "Not wrong, just confirming what I suspected." She removed a stack of papers from her bag, copies of additional bank records she requested. She laid them out on the table, her fingers tapping lightly on the top document. "Harold," she said quietly. "This wasn't a one-time misuse. Amelia has charged several large expenses over the last 6 months." My blood ran cold. What kind of expenses? She claimed them as shared household necessities. "But these," she pointed to a line, "this is a resort spa in Lake Geneva. This one, high-end clothing boutique. Here, a luxury dinner for 6 at a Michelin star restaurant, totaling nearly $4,700. All paid with your card." My breath stilled. My hands, folded tightly in my lap, trembled. "She never asked," I said. "No," Evelyn said softly, "because she knew you'd say no." It was one thing to learn she'd lied for a Rolex, another to learn she'd been quietly draining me for months. The walls felt like they were slowly tilting, reality rearranging itself. Evelyn continued, I'm not telling you this to hurt you, but you need full truth before deciding your next steps. I nodded, though my throat was thick. She closed a folder. There's something else. The police station told her the complaint won't move forward. She didn't take it well. I let out a humorless snort. I imagine not. She and Leon are panicking, Evelyn said. And panic makes people unpredictable. When she left, promising to prepare documents for further protection measures, I stood at the window watching her car pull away, feeling the strange hum of my house settling around me. I tried to eat, but couldn't. Instead, I walked outside into the fading afternoon. The sky was bruised purple, the breeze carrying the smell of fresh-cut grass. I walked down Birch Lane, past familiar houses, neighbors watering lawns, children playing with chalk, a dog barking at a squirrel. Life continued here as if nothing had cracked open. But inside me, something had. When I returned home, a car I didn't recognize was parked at the curb. A sleek black sedan with tinted windows. My gut tightened. Two women stepped out, both dressed in business attire, both with clipped expressions. One held a leather folder. The other had an ID badge clipped to her belt. The woman with the badge approached. Mr. Harold Mercer? Yes. I'm Detective Lauren Sutter, and this is Officer Priya Noland. We received a wellness request from your daughter, Amelia. A wellness request. I blinked slowly. What does that mean? Detective Sutter studied me carefully. Your daughter reported concerns for your decision-making capacity, citing memory lapses and unusual behavior. She suggested you might be vulnerable or confused. The air left my lungs. She wasn't trying to take money now. She was trying to take me. I'm fine, I said, my voice steady but cold beneath the calm. She filed it because I cut her off financially. Officer Noland exchanged a glance with the detective. May we step inside? Just to talk. I considered refusing, but refusing could be twisted later. I opened the door. They walked into my living room, their eyes scanning the space. Not suspiciously, more like they were looking for signs of instability. They saw the neat bookshelf, the tidy table, the tea mug washed and drying on the rack. My home was orderly, lived in, peaceful. Detective Sutter perched on the edge of the armchair. Mr. Mercer, do you feel unsafe? Has anyone pressured you financially or emotionally? Yes, I said, meeting her gaze unflinchingly. My daughter... Officer Noland's pen paused midair. In what way? I handed them the binder, bank statements, photos, messages, the Rolex proof. They read through everything slowly. The room was silent, except for the rustling of paper. After nearly 15 minutes, the detective closed the binder gently. Mr. Mercer, she said, you are clearly in full command of your faculties. This, she lifted the binder, is organized, detailed, and supported with evidence. There is no basis for a welfare follow-up. Relief washed through me like warmth returning to a cold limb. But, she continued, I am required to notify your daughter that the case is closed. That may upset her further. Of course it would. Officer Noland rose. If she attempts to intervene again, you can file a protective order based on harassment or manipulation. The detective added, and if she attempts to claim legal authority over you, you call us immediately. Understood. Understood. They left. I stood at the window watching their car disappear down the street, the world outside returning to its quiet rhythm. But my rhythm had changed. She had tried to frame me as mentally unfit. That was a line I never imagined her crossing. I sank onto the sofa, the weight of exhaustion crashing into me all at once. I rubbed my temples. The house felt larger, colder. Or maybe I finally saw what had been happening for years, a slow erosion of trust masquerading as daughterly affection. Helen would have cried if she saw this. And the thought of that hurt more than anything Amelia had done. My phone buzzed again. A message from Amelia. Hope the officers gave you what you need. We're not done. Answer your phone. No apology, just more entitlement. I stared at the screen for a long time before turning the phone face down on the table. No, Amelia, we weren't done, but not in the way you think. Something in me clicked into place. Quiet, calm, resolute. If she had escalated this far, I needed to do something I'd avoided even considering. Something that would change everything about our future. Something Helen would have told me to do years ago. I would rewrite my will. And this time, Amelia's name would not be anywhere on it. Filing the new will should have felt like a final step, a closing of a long and painful chapter. But as I sat in the notary's quiet office, pen in hand, a strange calm swept over me. Not triumph, not spite, but a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Maybe decades. Evelyn sat beside me, her presence steady and grounding. The notary, a soft-spoken woman with silver hair and meticulous glasses, read each line aloud with careful precision. My name, my estate, the full transfer of all property and assets into a trust one now controlled alone. And the line where Amelia's name used to be, now blank, replaced with a statement that stung me even as I approved it. No direct heirs designated due to concerns of financial abuse. My throat tightened. I signed anyway. The pen scratched across the paper, final and unflinching. Evelyn collected the documents, offered me a small, encouraging smile. You did the right thing, Harold. I know, I said softly, but the ache beneath the words betrayed me. We stepped out into the hallway, its fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above us. The world outside the office felt changed, as if the air had a sharper edge, the sun a clearer light. I wasn't naive enough to think this would be the end. If anything, I sensed the beginning of something more complicated. Evelyn walked beside me to the parking lot. She'll find out eventually, she said. Be ready for that. I answered, surprised at myself with the firmness of it. But that confidence didn't last long. As I approached my car, I spotted a familiar figure leaning against the hood of a black sedan. My pulse faltered. It was William, not the angry father-in-law I'd imagined storming into my life with accusations or demands. No, he looked deflated. His broad shoulders, normally square with self-assurance, slumped beneath a wrinkled suit jacket. His tie was loose, his jaw tense. Harold, he said quietly. Evelyn stiffened beside me. Should I stay? I nodded. Yes. William exhaled shakily. I need to talk to you. Not to blame you. To explain. This was not the man who'd worn that Rolex so proudly. Not the man Amelia had used as a pawn in her schemes. What is it? I asked. He rubbed a hand over his face, suddenly looking much older. My business is collapsing. I blinked. What? He sighed heavily. I trusted someone I shouldn't have. Signed papers I shouldn't have. Invested in a partnership that turned out to be smoke and mirrors. My stomach twisted, an uneasy recognition blooming. Amelia? I asked quietly. William didn't answer right away, which was an answer itself. He stared at the pavement, as if searching for something he'd dropped. She didn't cause it, he finally said, but she accelerated it. She fueled it. She encouraged spending money I didn't have, told me to present myself like the powerhouse I used to be. And that watch, he swallowed hard, I didn't know it was yours. I swear it. I believed him. Even Evelyn's rigid posture loosened slightly. She said you offered the money, he continued. She said you want to support her future family. That you insisted. I felt something cold settle inside me. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd lied to him, too. William shook his head. I confronted her last night. She screamed at me, called me ungrateful, said I should have known she was doing me a favor. I asked for receipts. Proof. Anything. She said she didn't owe me explanations. The pain in his voice was unmistakable. Everything Amelia had twisted, stolen, manipulated, it had started unraveling. She's been pushing me to sign over part of my company to Liam, he added, voice barely above a whisper. Said he'd streamline the financial side. I didn't understand why until now. Liam, the shadow behind every threat she made. The voice she echoed when she wanted more money. Harold, William finally said, looking up at me with something like desperation in his eyes, I think she's planning something bigger, something worse than just money. And I think she's using both of us to do it. A chill ran through me. What do you mean? But before he could answer, a sharp sound cut through the parking lot. A car door slamming. We all turned. There, standing beside a beat-up sedan at the far end of the lot, was Amelia, her hair wild, her cheeks streaked with tears and mascara, her expression pure fury. Every muscle in my body tensed. Evelyn stepped a little closer to me. Amelia stormed forward, practically trembling with rage. Her eyes were locked on me. Not William, not Evelyn, but me, as if the world had narrowed to a single target. "How could you?" she screamed. "How could you do this to me?" Her voice carried across the lot, raw and sharp. William took a small step back, startled. Evelyn, however, stayed perfectly still, as if she'd been trained for moments like this. I steadied myself. "Amelia, calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down," she shouted, her voice cracking. You cut me off, you talked to the police, you rewrote your will." She choked on the last word. My breath caught. "How do you know that?" I demanded. She let out a bitter, broken laugh. "Did you forget? The attorney's office mails confirmation copies. They sent one to the house. My house. I opened it. The world seemed to shrink around me. "You cut me out of everything," she whispered, voice trembling with disbelief more than grief. "Everything you promised after Mom died. Everything you said would be mine someday. You lied to me." "No," I said, my voice low. "You lied to me. Over and over." She shook her head violently. "I did what I had to do. You were supposed to help me, not judge me." William stepped forward. "Amelia, you lied to me too." "Shut up," she snapped, turning on him. "This is between me and my father." Her father. Yet she said the word like an accusation, not a bond. She swung back toward me. "Fix it," she demanded. "Put my name back. Give me access to the accounts again. And undo whatever you told the police, or I swear." Evelyn stepped forward sharply. "Or you swear what?" Amelia's jaw clenched. Her glare cut toward Evelyn with venom. "You stay out of this," she spat. "You're not family." Evelyn didn't flinch. "I don't need to be family to protect him from you." For a split second, something flickered across Amelia's face. Something like hurt, or maybe disbelief that anyone would dare stand between her and what she wanted. Then the anger returned full force. She pushed her hair back with a shaking hand. "This isn't over," she said, voice dropping into a low, trembling growl. "You think you can replace me? Cut me out of your life like I'm nothing." Her breathing quickened, her eyes glistening with tears she refused to let fall. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Both of you." She turned, her footsteps uneven as she stormed her car. The engine roared, tires screeching as she sped out of the lot. The silence that followed was suffocating. I barely heard Evelyn exhale. William's face had gone pale. "You see," he whispered, "she's not done. Not by a long shot." No, she wasn't. The storm was just beginning. But for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt ready. The drive home from the parking lot felt longer than usual. Even though I'd taken that route thousands of times in the 25 years I'd lived in my quiet corner of Redfield. The streets were familiar, but my mind wasn't. Every storefront, every stretch of pavement, every stoplight blurred into a haze of questions. What was Amelia planning? What had she already put in motion? And how far was she willing to go now that she realized her control over me was slipping? I pulled into my driveway slowly, the sun beginning its descent behind the maple trees that lined the block. Their shadows stretched across my lawn like long fingers reaching for something they couldn't quite grab. Before I could turn off the engine, another car rolled into the cul-de-sac. Evelyn's. She parked behind me and stepped out, her expression unreadable but her posture alert, protective, something I hadn't expected from someone who'd only recently entered my life. I got out of my car, my legs stiff. "You followed me?" "Not followed," she corrected gently. "Just making sure you didn't come home alone after that." She nodded toward the direction of the parking lot, where Amelia had unleashed her fury. "You shouldn't be by yourself today." I wanted to protest, but the truth pushed the words back down. She was right. I unlocked my front door, the familiar creak of the hinges greeting me, like an old friend who sensed something was off. Inside, the house was dim, quiet, too quiet. The stillness felt thicker than usual, as though the air itself was holding its breath. Evelyn stepped inside behind me, closing the door but keeping one hand on her bag as if expecting trouble. "Sit," she said softly. Not a command, but a suggestion lined with concern. I lowered myself into my usual armchair. She remained standing for a moment, scanning the room like a bodyguard assessing threats, before taking a seat opposite me. Neither of us spoke for a while. The silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, but heavy, like a shared grief for something that couldn't be repaired. Finally, Evelyn broke it. "She's unraveling, Harold." That wasn't anger. At least, not just anger. That was panic. I rubbed my temples. "I know. She's losing access to your money. She's losing influence over William. She's losing every pillar she built her life on. She's losing control," I said quietly. "And people who build their identities on control," Evelyn added, "tend to strike hardest when cornered." Her words sent a shiver through me, though the living room was warm. But then she leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "You didn't cause this. You revealed it. There's a difference." I nodded, though a part of me still felt cracked open. She used to be so sweet, thoughtful. After Ellen died, she clung to me. She said I was her whole world. When did that change? Evelyn didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied me with soft, sympathetic eyes. "Sometimes people grow, Harold, and sometimes they grow away from who we hoped they'd be." Her words were simple, but they hit harder than Amelia's screaming had. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. "What if she comes here?" "She might," Evelyn said honestly, "but you're not defenseless anymore. You have documentation, witnesses, a legally updated will, and me." Her voice didn't waver, and the steadiness of it eased something inside my chest. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. We both looked at it. An unknown number. But I recognized the pattern immediately. Amelia's habit of buying burner prepaid phones whenever she wanted to avoid someone's call history. "Don't answer," Evelyn murmured. I let it ring, then stop, then beep. A new voicemail. The room felt colder suddenly. Evelyn frowned. "Play it." My hand shook slightly as I pressed the message. Amelia's voice exploded through the speaker, trembling but fierce, the edges sharp enough to cut. "You think you won, don't you? You think you can erase me like I'm nothing. But you can't, do you hear me? You can't. You're my father. You owe me. Mom would have wanted you to take care of me. She'd be disgusted with you for choosing that lawyer woman over your own blood." Evelyn's eyes narrowed, but she didn't speak. "You took everything from me," Amelia continued, her voice cracking. "Well, I'm taking something too. And when I do, you'll understand exactly what you did wrong." The message ended abruptly. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Evelyn reached over, pressing her fingertips to the back of my hand. "She's escalating. We need to stay ahead of this." "How?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't predict her anymore." "I can," Evelyn said quietly, "because I've dealt with her type in court for 20 years. Her confidence filled the space where my fear had begun to creep. She stood and opened her bag, pulling out a slim folder. "I came prepared," she said. "I didn't want to say anything until I was certain." She handed me the folder. Inside were printed records, emails, notes, business filings. "William talked to me after you left," she explained. "He gave me everything he had. Because you're not the only one she manipulated. She's been playing both sides." I skimmed through the documents, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. Partnership proposals, power of attorney drafts, business transfers, all with Liam's name on them. She and Liam were trying to get William to sign over partial control of his company, Evelyn said. She wanted her husband tied into his financial assets. Permanently. My stomach lurched. She said she'd never let Liam handle money. She lied. Evelyn murmured. "And not just to you." I closed the folder, my breaths coming faster, my chest tightening. "She's dangerous," I whispered. Evelyn nodded. "Yes, but she's unraveling, and that makes her sloppy. It also makes her easier to stop. The word should have comforted me, but a new dread crept into my bones. What do we do next? We go to the police again, Evelyn said, with evidence, with documentation, with witnesses, and we make sure her threats are taken seriously this time. I nodded slowly, but before I could speak, headlights swept across my living room windows. Both Evelyn and I turned sharply. A car had pulled into my driveway, a familiar car. My heart dropped into my stomach. It was Amelia's. She climbed out before the engine even fully cut off, her movements jagged, unsteady. Her hair was a tangled mess, her shoulders trembling with either rage or grief. I couldn't tell which. Evelyn stood immediately, positioning herself between me and the door. "Stay behind me," she whispered. A second car pulled in behind hers. Liam. He stepped out slowly, rubbing his face with both hands, as if overwhelmed. My pulse pounded in my ears. Amelia marched toward the door and began pounding on it with the side of her fist. "Open this door right now," she screamed. Evelyn stayed still. I stood behind her, shaking. Amelia kept pounding, harder now, the wood rattling under her palm. "I know you're in there," she yelled. "You don't get to ignore me." Her voice cracked violently on the last word. Liam called out, "Amelia, stop! This isn't helping." "Shut up!" she shrieked. "He owes me." The pounding intensified. Evelyn reached for her phone. "Call the police." I whispered. She already was. Amelia's voice grew more frantic, more deranged. "You think you can replace me? With her? You think MOM would let you do this? Open this door. Open it." Her fist slammed against the wood until her knuckles smeared with red. Liam grabbed her arm, trying to steady her. "Enough, Amelia, enough. Let go of me." She spun on him, shoving him backward. He stumbled, catching himself on the porch railing. Then she turned back to the door, her breathing wild, erratic. Her voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible even from inside. "You'll regret choosing her over me, Dad." My heart fractured, not from guilt, but recognition. This wasn't a daughter grieving a loss of money. This was a daughter grieving the loss of control. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Evelyn placed a hand on my arm. "It's going to be okay," she murmured. I wasn't sure if I believed her, but I believed in her. And for now, that was enough. Thank you for watching. Before you go, show some support. Hit the subscribe button and share where you're watching from. Your comments help these stories travel further. Stay tuned. The next one might just surprise you.